Like, so yeah, what I was just saying is that, as far as today's call, it's gonna be a little bit different than, what we normally do, which is just talking, about real estate sales and how to sell more homes. Today, it's in my opinion, this call is actually, just as important, if not more important, I think, is what you do with your money once you, have been selling more real estate. Because, I'd mentioned that, in the 12 years or so that I've been selling real estate and making money, it's almost easier, I would say, to make money than it is to keep it, in my opinion. And that's kind of one of the things where it's like I've made a lot of money over the years. But, quite honestly, when I look back, it's like, man, I should have way more saved up and kept than what I do. It's like, and I'm a finance major. I started, my journey. I graduated in UTSA with a finance degree. And so, I mean, I totally understand finances and savings and, investments and I have a few, and it's not like, I'm starting from nothing, but at the same point, it's like, man, all that money that you earn along the way, it, usually gets spent unless you really have a plan put together. And today we're going to kind of be talking about a plan, that I've used, but I also, did a lot of research too, and found that a lot of people that, work this plan have had pretty good success with it. So that's what we're going to be talking about and sharing today. So perfect. We got it. All right. 19 people in. So I think we're ready to get going. We are live on Facebook. Let me just take one more check to make sure we're good there. Perfect. Yep. Hey guys, good morning, everybody. Matt, hey man, awesome. I love it. Congrats on passing your tests. That's great. What's up, Trent? Awesome, guys. Hey, Sherry, good morning. Perfect, guys. Well, all right. Well, let's get going. So that's the topic. I've got some notes here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my notes. And so first off, so the first thing that I want to talk about, guys, is this mindset that you have to kind of create for yourself with money, that you have to almost feel like every dollar that you earn needs a job. You've got to put that money to work in some form or fashion. And so, kind of think about that as we're going through all these different steps, but just, realize that every dollar that you earn needs a job. And the system that we're going to do, it's called a zero-based budgeting system. All right. So we're going to talk about budgets. We're going to talk about all sorts of things, not just budgets, but that's going to be a big part of it. And the way that you think about it. So, because the way that, I kind of look at money is that it flows to the people that are most disciplined with it. Right. So like, if you're not disciplined with your money, it will flow to somebody who is disciplined with their money. And so that's the way you have to look at it. Right. So one of the ways that you keep more money is you become more disciplined, and you start by, learning and educating yourself about money, about how to keep more money. And so anyway, so that's where we're going to kind of go off of. But this is a $0 based budgeting system. Basically what that means is every month your income adds up to 100%, right? Like there's a dollar amount on the income that you earn every month, right? It might change, some months might be different than others, but no matter what, there's a number that you make each month. And when you look at that, then what you have to then do is take every single one of those dollars that you earn each month and divert it into specific accounts, to where by the end of it, you have no dollars left over, right? Like every dollar is accounted for depending on what accounts you're putting them in. And so there's a cool tool that I'll share with you guys. I've never used this one personally, but it actually, does what I've done kind of manually myself over the years. But I think this is, if I would have known about this tool back then, I definitely would have used it. I think it makes it very simple for somebody to create these different accounts and kind of create their budget this way. But it's called You Need a Budget, and it's just youneedabudget.com. I think they've got like a 34 day free trial you can use, and then it's only like $7 a month after that. So it's not very expensive at all. Because I always get a lot of people asking like, well, what do you use? The program I've used over the years, it's a Mac specific program called Banktivity. Pretty advanced, honestly. Like, I mean, it's probably more than what most people would need or want. You Need a Budget is very simple. It connects to all of your accounts, and basically it does this zero-based budgeting system that we're going to be talking about today. That's how it's set up. So anyways, so first off, we're going to establish a budget, right? We're going to figure out, like how much, first off, you got to figure out how much you make every month, right? And the cool thing about it, and this is where over the years, I think, it all kind of boils down to this, is like, what do you make and what is your savings percentage, right? Like right now, is it 0% that you're putting towards savings? Well, you need to increase that, right? You got to at least make it, 5%, 10%, make it a goal that you know what you make. And then you're going to, divert some of that into a, savings mentality, right? Like if you're already saving 10%, save more, go try and make 20%, right? And I think a lot of us have a hard time kind of thinking like, well, all my money gets spent every single month, right? Like, we do a great job as human beings of like spending the money that we earn to where we think that by the end of the month, it's like, man, I don't have any money to save, right? And that's just the way that people are. Like I'm like that too. If I don't have a plan together, I'll spend every single one of the dollars that I earn, right? And then I'm just always saying like, well, I just don't have any more money to save. Well, you've got to establish what your savings percentage rate is, and have it be automated, right? Like 5, 10%, 20%. I mean, at this point now, what I've worked to get towards is to where I'm saving 50% of every dollar that I make, right? So like 50% goes towards savings. And in the beginning, and still where I'm at today, is paying off debt, right? Like, so like part of my thought of savings is also paying off debt. Once you pay off all your debt, then that can go towards, putting it towards investments and things like that as well. But we'll get there. So, but anyways, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but you've got to know how much you're making in income. And then you've got to track your expenses, right? Like figuring out like what percentage you spend, what percentage you save. And right now, like I say, a lot of people might be in that spot where they're spending 100% of their income. They might be spending more than 100% of their income. And that's where you kind of get in trouble, right? If you are, maxing out credit cards or, taking out debt, for like far into the future, you almost got to look at it like you're stealing money from your future self, right? Like you're making it harder for yourself into the future by buying things with money that you don't have today. And so, I mean, don't steal money from yourself. Like that's like one of the worst things that you can do. There's an argument to, having debt for assets or, things that are going to make you money, but definitely like consumer debt and, taking out debt for liabilities, things that are going to depreciate in value, that's like a bad thing to do. And I mean, everybody I think knows that, but just, realize, like, look at it a different light. Like you're stealing money from yourself every time that you put something that is not an asset, that is not an absolute, like, like maybe like, it's like, you have to do it, then you have to put it on a credit card or something. But, don't go out there and buy the Apple Watch or the shoes that you want, or, go out there and eat, nice meals or something and put it on credit cards if you can't pay it off right away, because you are literally stealing money from your future self. So, so it's just one way to think about it. So first off, we got to, establish this budget, and we're going to get more into that here in a little bit, but that's going to be like kind of step one, right? Like figuring out this budget system and figuring out how much money you earn, how much money you expend, and then what your savings rate percentage can be. And then throughout this whole process, we're going to try and talk about how we can increase that savings rate. And so anyways, but then step two, once we've figured that out, right? Like we have like a plan in place, either you're using, you need a budget, or you're using a spreadsheet, or whatever it is, system that you're using. Then the next thing is you want to set, kind of a goal that the first thing you need to do is to actually start building your emergency fund. So a lot of people probably have heard of an emergency fund. You might know what that is. That's basically just an account that you're going to sock away money for, that if, something bad happens, transmission on your car breaks, taxes that you didn't know were due or whatever, right? Like you didn't plan for something, medical thing, you've got money set aside. So that way you don't have to go and put it on a credit card and spend 22% on it. Right. And so, basically this is an account that you're going to put, you want to have ideally eventually 6 months of your living expenses in. So if like, it cost you $7,000, to live, you eventually want to get to 6 months into this emergency fund, which is in like a liquid account. It's probably just in like a savings account or something that you can pull out, you don't want this in, like I've got a rental real estate or something. It's like, well, I've got, enough money if I sold this house, because that's not going to happen. Like if you need that money, you need it right away. So it's got to be in a liquid account, not in your savings, your long-term savings account. So you want 6 months. But what we're going to do is 3 months in, once you have 3 months of that emergency fund, that's when you can then start looking at kind of the next step, which is paying off debt. Okay. So like, you might think like, oh, I just want to start paying off debt right away. And definitely, I mean, don't get behind on your credit cards, still pay the, whatever you're paying on it, minimum payments or whatever, just so you're not, accruing, all these extra late fees and interest charges that you shouldn't have to pay on top. But save that 3 months first. And then what the next step is going to be is how to actually start to pay off your debt. What's up, Sylvia? Good to see you. And so once you've done that, right, you've got 3 months now of emergency fund. It's not saying you're done building your emergency fund, but now we're going to start actually kind of like putting in some debt things where you can start paying off some of your debts. And there's 2 ways you can pay off debt. And I'm not going to say one way is better than the other. It's, you got to make this choice of like what is in it, like the way that you would stick with the best. But you've got the Avalanche Method and you've got the Snowball Method. And you'll see, both of them talked about. Mathematically, the Avalanche Method is better. The Avalanche Method basically says you list every single one of your debts, whether it's, your car payments, home equity line of credit, credit cards, even your home mortgage, put everything in there, student loans, anything that you've got as far as debt, and then you rank them in order of what is the highest percentage in interest rate, right? And then you start paying off the highest interest rate first, right? And you just, putting extra payments towards paying that off. You're still paying all your debts that you have, but, the minimum payments at least. And then, whatever the highest interest rate is, you're starting to pay extra on that one to kind of build up and pay those ones down first. That's the Avalanche Method. The Snowball Method is basically the same thing. You write out all of your debts, but then you rank them by which ones you can pay off the soonest, right? Which ones have the lowest balance on them. And then you start to pay off those ones with the lowest balance first. And so the reason why there's 2, right, and why you would even, think about doing the Snowball Method, even though it's not mathematically the best one, is sometimes if you do the Avalanche Method, people get like, it's kind of hard to keep up with it. You kind of get burnt out, or maybe you might lose steam of it because you don't see enough progress taking place. Whereas like if you do the Snowball Method, you get that first debt paid off, and now you can, double and put the money you were paying for that debt, the minimum, and you can start paying off the next one. You start to like really build up this snowball where, by the end of it, yeah, you'll have, the highest interest rates at the end, but they might, they might be pretty big accounts like that you have a lot to pay off on, but you'll have a lot of money to start putting towards those. So it's just more of like in your head, like what you think is going to be, the way that you're going to stay the course with it. And so obviously if you can stay the course with the Avalanche Method, that's the best way to do it, and you're just going to pay off the highest percentage rates, which mathematically is going to be the best. Mine, I'll be honest, what I did and what I'm still doing is kind of a combination of both. I knew that credit cards were by far the highest, right? And I had some 17 and 20, 22% credit cards. I paid those off first because, I mean, they were well higher than my next highest percentage interest rate, which is like 5 or 6% on a home equity line of credit. And so I paid off those 17, 20% credit cards first. And then now, I'm kind of like, I've got a bunch of debt that's like between 3 and 5%, like cars and home equity line of credit and stuff. And I'm paying off, my cars first because it's like, those are a little bit smaller than this home equity line of credit. Even though the home equity line of credit is a little bit higher, it was like, man, I just want to get rid of my car payment, right? Because that'll make me feel better about myself. And so that's what I've now done, is to where it was almost like a combination of both. So I'm not saying, one's better than the other, but just kind of, what is going to work for you, and go towards getting that debt paid off. So now one of the next things is tell you, I mean, most of us, as we're real estate agents watching this, it's probably not as applicable. But if you're not a real estate agent, one of the things that I will tell you, and this is, I'm so happy I did this when I was working in new home sales, is that when I was working for a home builder, we had a 401k for that home builder. And I would say that at this point, if you've got a company or somebody, a business that's paying you 100% match on your 401k, this is the part where you start to look at that, right? Like you've got your emergency fund saved up at least 3 months. Maybe you're getting close to getting 6 months. You're starting kind of this debt snowball effect. Now you can kind of inject like at least that 401k match, because that is literally free money that your company is giving you, and you want to take full advantage of it. And so like, for instance, like, let me just give you an example. Like I'm with, eXp Realty. We've got a program where we can take 5% of our commissions and apply that or have it automatically done to where it'll buy EXP stock at a 20% discount. That's as close as I've got to like a 401k in my scenario. And so I take full advantage of that now, right? Like it's 5% that goes towards buying it. It gets it, the stock at a 20% discount. That's free money for me. And so I take full advantage of it. So if you've got anything like that in your life and your business where you can take advantage, definitely take advantage of that at this point. Now, before that, again, I wouldn't take advantage of it unless you've already gotten an emergency fund, and unless you've got, a significant amount going towards some debts, paying off that debt, I would wait. But if you've got that point where you've gotten this far, then get to that part where you're going to get some kind of 401k match or investment where you're getting free money. This is not like just invest to invest yet, right? We're not there yet, where you're investing to invest a significant part of your money. There is a small percentage, and we're going to get to that right now. And this is where, so we're going to go back and we're going to kind of talk about that budget and that zero-based budgeting system. Ian's got a beard. I love it. What's up, Ian? My man.
Oh, good. Beard, I don't know. I guess it just looks a little thicker here.
It does look a little thicker, man. I like it.
That I cut it last time. I didn't like trim it all down, but
yeah. Well, and we're looking at you from a different angle. I think maybe we're like a little lower angle. I think is maybe.
Yeah, I'm on my laptop here, so I can work on my big iMac over here. So just listening in, man. Great content.
There we go. Good stuff. Well, cool. So guys, all right. So now let me go back. I want to take a step back, because here's where, when we're going to get into that budgeting and you need a budget, here's my recommendation, right? Like as far as setting up these accounts. And so, the number of accounts that we talk about, it's not super important right now. I'm going to give you a number of accounts that I would think that the average person, like most people, would probably be, wanting to use. But like, for me, I literally, have 2 accounts, right? Like I got like my account that I've got for savings, and then I've got my account that I've got for spending, right? Like I just know what my savings rate is. And so every month it's like, I put this much into savings, the rest of it goes into my account for spending. And I'm just always trying to increase that savings rate account. And so, but that might not be, as organized for everybody. I would say that if you're really trying to like, make a big change in your life and you need something to happen financially, like it might be better to have more accounts, even though, it's a little bit harder to kind of track, or it's kind of harder to start. Again, this is all about, being, what's the word I'm looking for? Like more disciplined in your finances, right? So like if you have more accounts, it takes a little bit more work, but you're also being more disciplined in it. And so what I'm going to talk to you about is having 6 accounts. Okay. And this is actually, there's a good book, right, that kind of talks about this. I'm sure maybe some people have read this book or at least have heard about it, but it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. So I'm sure there's actually, it's funny. You can, here, let me put this, I'm going to put, you can watch it on YouTube. There you go. Jerome, there you go. It's actually an audio book. You can just go to YouTube and somebody's already like talked the whole book through. So you don't have to buy it if you don't want to, but if you want to buy it, here, let me put you a link. I got a link in here. So that's it. There you go. Just underneath that, that's richest. That's right, Jerome, in Babylon book. And that's going to talk about this, like paying yourself first. It's going to talk about, having different accounts, and just, it's kind of cool because it's a fictional, it's not a real story, but it's like a parable about, in the past, like a personal finance kind of a story. And so I think it's a great way to look at it, and it puts some perspective when you're thinking about all of this, and it kind of takes out just like the numbers, and it makes it more exciting to kind of read this. So I think it's a good book for somebody who's just getting started to read, because again, it's not just so like numbers based where it's like dry. There is another book that I'm going to give you guys here in a little bit that is more like dry, but it's a really good manual that I'll tell you that will help you with this as well. But okay, so here's the 6 accounts that I would recommend for most people to set up. And then these are the percentages that I think that, if you're setting them up, need to go into those accounts each and every month of your income. So the first account is your necessities account, right? Like, so this is going to be, truly necessities, right? Like, don't mix this up and think like, oh, well, I just need a new pair of shoes or something. Like, unless your shoes are holy or whatever, like this is necessities. Like, you got to like eat to live. This is not like, going out and, spending money on, going and eating out. Like, eating out is not a necessity. That is just part of your lifestyle. It's a nice thing to do, but literally you can eat at home for a lot less expensive. So necessities is 55% of your income, right? So you can put 55% of your income into necessities. And so, yeah, a lot of people probably think like, God, I don't know if I can live on 55% of my income, like for my necessities. Like, my bills, cost more than that. And if that's the case, then again, there's 2 ways you can kind of accomplish this 55% number. You can either spend less money, or you can go out there and earn more money, right? Like, if you're a real estate agent and you're not selling enough homes, like, maybe you need a side hustle, right? Like, or maybe you need to do something also in addition to selling real estate, or you need to go all in and like work more hours, right? 70, 80 hours, like, figure it out. But if that's not making ends meet, then, I know, like, go out there and pick up Uber, right, on the side, or do something to get extra money coming in to where 55% of your income is going to go towards your necessities. So yeah, spending money that you don't have is not disciplined. Eating out is not a living expense. So I've already talked about a lot of that, but that's all one of my notes that I put in for necessities. But 55%, so meaning if you earn $10,000 a month, $5,500 is going to go into a physical account, right? Like, and you can set this up with your bank where you've got different accounts, like different savings accounts. Like, I know like Ally Bank, which is an online bank, can do that. Wells Fargo, you can set up different accounts within these. And the nice thing about it is online, you can actually move money through these different accounts and see it all online, to where you can actually make it an easy process to transfer money between these accounts. It's not as hard as what it, used to be. So literally you have an account set up for necessities, 55% goes into it. The next account is long-term spending. And for that account, you put 10% into, right? So 10% goes into long-term spending. And what that basically means, long-term spending, that's like paying off your debt, right? Like extra money that you're going to use to paying off your debt. So your necessities, it is needed that you pay your mortgage. It is needed that you pay the minimum payment on your credit cards. It is needed that, you have food in that account, right? Like, those are the things that are needed, that are going to go for necessities. So minimum payments. Now, the long-term spending, that 10%, that's going to go towards paying off your debt first off. Like, that's going to be the additional payment that you're paying for your debts to kind of create that avalanche, that snowball effect. And then once all your debt's paid off, then it's going to start going towards like, fun things, like going towards big purchases, or going towards, a new to you car. I still don't think that you should buy a new car, like a 3-year-old car or something like that. That's, already took some depreciation, is probably a better investment for somebody. But, a car or a trip, right? Like a big trip that you've been wanting to take, like, you're going to just take that 10% that you were paying towards your debt. Once all the debt's paid off, now you're going to be still saving that 10% in a different account, or in the same account, but just not using to pay off the debt. It's going to be towards like, if you're going to be buying a new house soon or something like that, like whatever it is that you've got, like, we want to put a pool in, but I'll take 10%. Once my debt's paid off, I'm going to put that into an account so that when I want to put the pool in, now I've got, money I can pay for that, right? That's that long-term spending account. And that's kind of the idea behind what that is. Your play account is 10% of your income as well. So this is where Again, most people, like, this is, where you're going to really have to kind of get down to it. And if you're earning, $6,000 a month, you're going to put $600 in this account. That's going to last you the whole month of what you're going to do. Right. So like, you might, get to the end of the month and you're like $42 left in it, and, you're out to eat. You're not going to get the bottle of wine or the glass of wine, right? Like, you've only got this much money in it. You got to stay disciplined. And that's how it is, right? You put 10% towards your play. And so again, we're not saying that you can't go out and have fun, because if you do this and you don't set up any percentage for play or whatever, you'll get burnt out pretty quickly. But you got to, kind of be conservative with it. So 10%. Education. This is that important that it makes the list. And I mean, I think that education needs to be just as much as your play account. 10% is what I have down here for education. And this is improving your skills and value to the marketplace, right? So like, this is like you investing in yourself to go out and, learn something new, get better in something you're already doing. But basically just, mentoring, taking picking up an additional course, reading something, this is buying a book, this is whatever that is, but you need to have 10% of your income going towards education. That sounds, to some of you guys, that might sound like a lot of money, but, I'll be honest, I've spent well over that, in the years, probably the last, 7-8 years. And every dollar that I've put into that has come back in, multiplied, high multiplication. So education, I think, is so important. It's one of the best things you can spend on yourself, or spend, at all. And so then the next part I've got down here is financial freedom. This is 10% of your income as well. I think this is kind of your, like, retirement. This is your investing. This is like, you're going to put it in an account. And, in the beginning, I wouldn't worry too much about like where it's going necessarily. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, you got to start learning how to invest in real estate, because like, that's probably going to be more of a distraction than anything. If you don't have the free time to do that, to like go out and like learn something new, then just put it in, like a safe, index fund, right? Like, I was reading a book, here recently, called The Simple Path to Wealth. And they talk about just putting it in a low cost index fund, with Vanguard, right? I think I can't even remember the symbol, but it's literally just, a index of all of all of the stocks out there. And so if anybody knows what that index is, I've got my money going to it. I just don't even know the ticker symbol, but it's with Vanguard. It's got like some of the lowest fees. And they say that over the last, 40 or 50 years, stocks have averaged like 11.9%, which, can you make more than that on some investments? I'm sure you can, in real estate and whatnot, but you also can lose a lot more too. And it's going to take a lot more time and effort to figure out like what you're going to do. In the meantime, just put 10%, in a low cost index fund with Vanguard, and, park the money there. And then, down the road, you can do something different with it or whatever. But for now, if that's like, you're just getting started into it, that's where you can put that 10% towards your financial freedom. And then the last part we've got is 5% towards charity, right? And that's charity. That could be church. It could be whatever it is that you want to put that money in. But there is a definite correlation. I don't know what it is, right? But anytime that I've given money, like, it comes back somehow, right? Like, I'm not saying it comes back with more money, but it comes back with like an experience or something that, like, I think that, it's just a good thing to do all the time for multiple reasons, right? So that's kind of it, right? So now you've given every one of your dollars that comes in a job, right? Like, all 100% of the dollars coming in now have a job. You are putting them to work for you. So here's actually the book that these numbers kind of come from. So if you want to get a book that's going to give you more details about all this, it's called Your Money, The Missing Manual. It's by J.D. Roth. He's got a great blog called GetRichSlowly.org. That's his blog, GetRichSlowly.org. And here's the book. I got it. There we go. I'll type it in here. Had it saved there in my notes. GetRichSlowly.org got a lot of posts that talk a lot about this. And then that book, it's pretty dry. It's not like an exciting book by any means, but if you want to know more about why to set up these accounts this way and, the idea behind it, that is a good book for you to read. there's one other thing too. This is the other place that I get my personal finance information about. So I'm going to put that in here. I go on Reddit a ton. I'm part of the personal finance subreddit there. And I get a lot of my information from Reddit. There's a wiki, it's called, on the right-hand side. It's like on the sidebar on the right that you can read. And it's one of the best, probably, I don't know, 30-minute reads that you have. It's pretty extensive, but all about personal finance, goal setting, budgeting, all that kind of stuff in there. It's a really good wiki. They also have got like cool stuff in there, like, broken down by age, like, if you're 18 to 25, if you're 25 to 30, if you're like some different things that you might, want to be doing depending on if you're in that age group. They got things that talk about credit. They got things that talk about debt, retirement, investing, all in that sidebar. You just click it and then it's going to give you more information about, that specific thing. Where is that link? It's right there above, Sylvia. There you go. You're all good. I love Reddit, guys. There's so much good stuff in there. A lot of good people in there too that contribute. I'm mostly probably just I just read. I don't really do a lot of the posting in there, but man, some of the people in there, they see things differently. They explain it in a way that I think makes sense, and it motivates you, right? Like when you hear it a certain way, I think that it's pretty motivating. So, all right, cool. Well, so that's kind of like part one of this training today. So I'm going to take a break here. I just want to kind of like, before we go into part two, I want to see what y'all's thoughts are, like what questions you might have about this, and kind of just, do that. So let me pull up my Facebook stream to see if there's any questions going on in here. All right. And then guys, if you're live with me here in Zoom, feel free to either put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Come on here. Curtis, my man, I don't know if you're there currently or not, if you had any things you wanted to share, thoughts, all that good stuff.
I'm taking notes like everybody else, man. I'm in the Reddit subreddit right now. And I looked up the Vanguard Index Fund to get some money moving that way. I'm teaching Jackson how to invest. So we actually just opened our TD Ameritrade account together. Jackson's my 11-year-old son, and he showed an interest recently in investing. So I'm looking up that index fund. This is great stuff, Kyle. I've never used You Need a Budget. That looks like a great website. I was watching the little video and all that good stuff. This is really, really good stuff, man. I don't have a lot to contribute. I appreciate the info.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm trying to pull up here real quick too. The simple. So again, it's J.L. Collins is the author of Simple Path to Wealth. And so let's see here. It's like 5 letters. Why can I not think of what it is? But it's literally like the lowest cost index fund. Like most index funds, you'll pay like 1 or 2% or something like that. And this is like 0.05%, right? That you.
I think it's VFINX, like the Vanguard 500 Index Fund. I think that's it. Just reading real quick. It
sounds a little different. Let's see.
Okay, maybe it's not that one.
Vanguard All Stock Index Funds, Simple Path to Wealth. What is it? All right. Somebody's got to find this. VTSAX. There you go. VTSAX. Yeah. So everybody, you can look up the VTSAX. Index funds, because I think, that one you're talking about, Curtis, it's like 500 stocks. This is like, or it might be like, there's a lot of index funds that are tied to like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones. This is literally like, it's tied to like every stock.
That's
like
what you want.
every single stock. So you're as diversified as you possibly can get, right?
Yeah.
And so, and honestly, guys, if you haven't read The Simple Path to Wealth, like that's a great book to read also. I just listened to that one out on Audible probably about a month ago. And shout out to AJ Maida, was the one that told me to read that book. And it's a really good book. It makes it so simple for you to see how easy it can be to save and to start really building wealth. Like it doesn't have to be a complicated thing. Literally, it's more just about discipline. And he even says it like, this is going to be the most basic book that there is out there. And it is, right? Like there's no mind blowing things or anything like that. Like all he talks about that whole book is just putting your, savings into VTSAX. He talks about why it's probably more beneficial for the average person just to do that versus like anything else and getting caught up into anything else, because, talks about like, if you're, wrong, even, a small percentage of the time, then, you would have been better off, in the long run. investing in VTSAX. And one of the coolest things too that he talks about, that, and this is kind of off my notes, I didn't write this down, but man, I've had this like weighing on my shoulders for the last month now. As he talks about, we all think of things in like the cost of what they cost us today, right? Like I'm going to go out there and I'm going to buy, this expensive car, right? And it's like, yeah, I can afford it, right? Like I can pay for it. It's no problem. But like, let's say I go out there and I buy, this $50,000 car, and then let's say I buy it on, a 3% interest rate, which you can even justify that. Like, oh, it's such a low interest rate. Like, my payments are low, whatever, right? The amount of money that actually costs you in the long run is so high. Like he talks about, like, if you had invested, because it's not even just what it cost you today, it's what it costs you into the future. And so it's like, if you had invested, $30,000, like what that could look like, and it's pretty astronomical. I mean, you're talking like 30, 40 years down the road. Like if you had invested that type of money, it's costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so like, if you really want to put a guilt trip on yourself, which is like what it did to me, go read that book. Cause then you start thinking like, God, if I spend $10 on this, like that's costing me like $1,000, like, 30 years from now, like I'm not going to pay $10 for this thing. Right. And so like, it's pretty cool. Obviously everything's a balance. I'm not saying that you need to go out there and be crazy about all this. But it does make you really, really kind of like, second guess some of your purchases, and made you think like, man, if I just instead put that into VTSAX, what that could do for me, what could that, do for my financial future. He's got some great calculators that put some of this stuff into perspective. So anyways, just sidebar there.
Kyle, one quick takeaway, man. I'm just looking at my notes here, right? The 55, 10, 10, 10, and 5. One thing that I got from this right away that goes with my life, I know not everybody on the call is married, but my wife hasn't really been a big part of the finances for most of our adult life. She just really hasn't. She's contributed and made some money. There's many times she hasn't worked. She doesn't work currently. So she doesn't really ever know what's going on with our finances. And in the last couple of months, she's been curious. She kind of wants to know. And when I show her, there's so much going on with my spreadsheets, with our bank account, like we have 2 accounts. She's like, well, what's that? Where's that? It's hard to understand, right? But I look at this and I think, okay, well, if I take care of the necessities, for example, and I were to show her the long-term spending, the play account, and the financial freedom and the charity, and I would say, hey, here's the 35% every month that I'd like you to steward, push in the right direction, be aware of what a great way to partner and collaborate. And she wouldn't have to worry exactly about what's coming in every month and where it's coming from, as long as I set this up to transfer that 35% to where it needs to go. But then she'd have such an active role, and I just think that's something cool that I took away from this, where we could actually find a way to work together. It creates a system that just allows us to be successful together. So I appreciate this, man.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny. Like, so here's at the end of the day, I think, cause I'm in the same spot with you, right? Like where like my wife, she hasn't been, big on the finance side. Like that's something I've always taken care of. But she's curious about it. Like she does want to know, like, she's always like, man, like if, like I wouldn't know a single thing if something were to happen to you or anything like that. And so, first off, it comes around communication and setting aside times where it's like, hey, we can sync up and, kind of like talk about this stuff, but it's also about simplification. Like I've made things such a mess in the past, like with like how I invest and like where I put my money. And sometimes I spend money a certain way and sometimes I don't. And it's just so like hit or miss that like I couldn't explain it to her if I wanted to, unless I was going to sit down with her for a month and just, talk about it. But like the simpler you can make it, the easier it becomes to like be on the same page with it. And one of the cool things that I was going to share this page here. I thought this was kind of cool for anybody that is going to sign up for that You Need a Budget deal, is that literally the way that it does it is you can, put your spouse on there. And like, I thought this was kind of pretty cool, is that you can budget together, right? So like they can log in with their app, you got your app, they can, y'all be on the same page with like being able to see where you're at in real time. And so that was a cool part there.
Does everybody else's screen say "and not accidentally overspend at Target," or is that just my screen?
Mine says that. They know you, Curtis. They threw that in for just for you.
She was school shopping last night while I was teaching Real Estate 101. Came home with like 6 bags. I was like, that's a lot of school shopping. No, it was good.
Oh yeah, no, I hear that. Target, man. That's like the one that I see on my thing. all the time is like target. I'm like, I feel like, is she just buying like each thing individual transactions, or does she go to Target that often to where like literally I see Target like 30 times on a monthly thing or whatever.
You don't
Everything
need
else
10
is like
attempts to hit the target, babe. One time you hit the target, that's it. We come on back.
That is it, man. That is it. So yeah, so that is something that I think is exciting, keeping it simpler. And that's what's fun is like, if I literally, can show Chrissy like, hey, this is what we do. Like, this is our budget. This is what we invest in, that's it. Right. Like, and so that's where it's like, yeah, if you just, low cost index fund, you can explain too, you can also project and say like, look, this is, where we'll be if we do this plan in 20 years, 30 years. Like, this is how much we'll have saved for, our kids. Like, this is how much we'll have saved for ourselves. Like, and those are the types of conversations that are fun that, she can get behind, I can get behind. Because at the end of the day, like, it's like, if you're out here doing this on your own, kind of on an island, it's not very fun, like you've got to be doing this with somebody. And it's kind of fun. Like, I've actually had a thought here, like, just in the last couple of days, as I was like preparing for this training, of like, I want to take you guys on this journey with me, right? Like, I've got, my website, kylehandy.com. I literally want to have a separate page where I just like track, right? Like my like financial, like things that I'm working towards, my goals and all that kind of stuff. Just because like, one, I want to be held accountable, which I think is pretty cool. And when I, open this up to where like, all this stuff is like out there, it's like, well, now I'm definitely gonna be held accountable, right? Like, what I'm spending, and it's not gonna be it wouldn't be super complicated. It'd literally be like, this is what my income was, this was my expenses for the month, this is how much I put towards saving or paying off debt or whatever, and then take you guys along for that journey with me. And like, that's my thought of doing this. But on a small scale, if you don't, necessarily feel comfortable, or you don't have the platform to do that on, and you just want to have somebody, I think it's just as like anything else, like, it's super important to hold yourself accountable to these things. So bring somebody with you to kind of help hold you accountable. Z squared. Yeah. Is this recorded? Missed the first 15 minutes. It is. It will be on my Patreon page, which I'll put a link at the end, here at the end, just patreon.com/Kyle Handy. This will go into the sales one, which I think it's like $4.98 a month, and you get access to all the past recordings of it. So we'll be there this afternoon. All right, I'm just reading back some of these comments.
VTSAX is up 20% this year to date.
I believe it, man.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. There's no reason, like, if you really read Simple Path to Wealth, I mean, like, it really got me rethinking everything, like, on how I want to invest and how easy it can be. And when you see that, like, if you just do that one simple thing, but you do it consistently, and the amount of money that you would have 20, 30, 40 years from now, like, you're like, man, why would I go try and do anything else other than just be consistent with that one thing? And so it's pretty interesting. Now, obviously, I mean, there's lots to say about, investing in real estate, and you can definitely do that and all that. But again, for the average person, like, and even for myself, like, I mean, I'm a realtor, I've invested in real estate. I still am like tempted to just say like, hey, I'm just doing that because that's so simple and easy to do. Sylvia, should we find a person to help you invest or do one of these apps? So these apps that we're talking about, you need a budget and all that kind of stuff, is really more just like budgeting. I don't know that it's like talking about investing. Specifically for investing, like, if you're talking about like, should I go out and get a financial advisor, financial planner, go read the book Simple Path to Wealth. He tells you, do not get a financial advisor. One of the worst things that you can do. If you've got any financial advisors on this call, sorry, but I mean, just, he makes a big point as to why that is not in your best interest. And literally, if you just took the savings that you're going to get from not going out and getting a financial advisor, and you just invest it in VTSAX, like, that is all you need to do. Like, there's no reason why you would need somebody to tell you to go put your money in VTSAX. Like, so anyways, yeah, I would say that I would not look at doing that. And then as far as like helping you, use one of these apps, all that I'm suggesting in that standpoint is just somebody that's going to help hold you accountable. Like, find somebody that, is going to want to maybe do this with you. There's lots of people that want to get their finances together. And if you can just find somebody that, and now you have the roadmap, right, to go out there and share with them, like, hey, I watched this great thing, or, I'm going to go, read this book and get more information, and then just do this with them, get on that same track with them. I think that that's all you really need, right? And then set up the system so you can share it with that person. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's somebody else, like, that wants to do this, whatever it is, but that's all you need. I don't think you need to pay somebody to do this. And so, let's see, Tammy, historically, realtors have difficult time paying taxes when due. So think this is great information for a way to save. Absolutely. Yeah, Tammy, that's a huge point there. I haven't brought that up, but yeah, I mean, the way that we get paid as realtors, you need to save for your taxes at the end of the year, right? Like most likely, at least 25%, but maybe, a third, right? And so having that account set up to where when tax time comes, you can easily pay that versus, you kind of stressing out because that taxes are going to come due, the same time each year. Now it's just a way that it's like, okay, like I've already planned for this each time that you get a commission check. So you're putting that money to work. And so, yeah, so in those percentages that we talked about, if you're a real estate agent specifically, I would almost say that, that your long-term spending, right? Like maybe you have a seventh account, right? And that's just going to be your taxes because you're 1099, that they're going to be due each time. So whenever you get a commission check, 25% goes away if that's what your tax rate is, or 33% goes away if that's what your savings rate is. Perfect point there, Tammy. Thanks so much. Hey, Target's an awesome rabbit hole. That's right, Latrice. All right, cool. E-Trade is low cost for self-directed investing. Yeah, Gabrielle, I'm not sure. I've never used E-Trade. I would just compare it again. He did a lot of comparisons in the book. It sounded like he had kind of done a lot of that, comparing it to TD Ameritrade, comparing it to E-Trade, comparing all these places. And so I would just say, like, there should be a place, like, 'cause I remember I was, before I was invested in USAA, I had some of my money in USAA, and I literally just transferred it all now over to Vanguard because I looked at what I was paying for USAA, and it still wasn't that high. It was like, I don't know, 0.45% or something like that. But it's still a lot higher than 0.05%. So just check and see. There should be a way that you can see like what your expense, they call it an expense ratio, is with E-Trade. And if it's 0.05, if it's matching that, then then that's fine. But honestly, he even goes into the details about what the difference, because if it's say 0.2, you might be thinking, oh, that's like still very low. But he actually talks about over 30, 40 years, the difference between 0.05 and 0.2. And, and it's a lot bigger than what you might think. So just reconsider it. I'm not saying you got to go blow up your whole financial plan and all that kind of stuff and change things around. But if you want more information about that, go read the book, Simple Path to Wealth, and see if that changes your thoughts or opinions about it. Cool. So Heather, Robinhood, from what I understand, Robinhood, I think, isn't that where you can trade stocks and stuff like that individually? I think that's what it is. I don't know if you can do index funds or whatever, but again, guys, keep it simple. I mean, and in that book, he talks about too, like, investing in individual stocks versus going out there and buying like an index fund. And literally you might win on a couple stocks here and there, but in the long term, and he even talks about this in the sense of like what, financial people who, that's their job every single day, the percentage of them who beat the average index fund over 30 to 40 years is like, it's like a rounding error. It's like super small. So, I wouldn't get too caught up with trying to think you're going to beat the market and over the long term. People can do it, in a year or in 2 years, but I mean, there's a whole lot of math that like goes into showing why over the long haul, 30, 40 years, it's not going to be advantageous for you to do. What's up, Heather? I see you got your hand raised. Curtis, what's up? I like Curtis's putting 5% towards Bitcoin. Oh, you there?
I'm on my phone and I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. Anyway, yeah, I picked up Robinhood because I wanted to buy some EXPI stock over the counter. So I bought it I bought it. I picked it up for that. I haven't tried to buy any other types of investments through it, but I'll try that sometime this week and see how it goes.
Awesome. And guys, we're not going to get to my second part today. I'm going to save the second part, I guess, for next Monday. But what I was going to talk about in the next part is kind of like just my 10 like tips or like things that you can think about, as far as financially related and things like that. And one of actually, this is the 10th thing. It's called taking calculated risks. And what you're kind of talking about there with like Robinhood and all that is a calculated risk, and wealthy people do take calculated risks from time to time. Like, you've got some money set aside to take a calculated risk. And when you bet on, any stock, whether it's a stock that you think is going to do well or not, right? It's a calculated risk, right? Like no matter what, like there's no sure thing. And so, yeah, you definitely want to have a percentage. This also goes towards what Curtis was saying about Bitcoin, right? Like there's there's an argument that can say like, hey, maybe you should put 1% of your wealth towards Bitcoin, right? Like you're diversifying, right? But that doesn't mean you go bet the farm on Bitcoin, or you go bet the farm on EXPI stock or any other stock for that matter, right? Like, but it wouldn't hurt you if you've got, the money to do so, to put your, bets on some other things too, right? But like we're talking like small amounts of your total wealth, like 1%, right? Like I think I've got $4,000 worth of cryptocurrency in my portfolio, right? Like that's like about 1%, right? Like, so like, it's like, you can put 1% towards something, but don't go out and bet the farm. You want to take calculated risks. Wealthy people take calculated risks. So anyways, yeah. We're going to have to do, I don't even want to start on these 10 things because it'll take way too much time to go through all of it. And I don't want to rush this. So we're just going to do this on the next one, which is going to be, kind of these 10 ideals towards investing, towards all this kind of stuff. So what else do we got? We'll just wrap up these last 5 minutes then, just with kind of going back through these questions. I'd love to pay off my business credit card. This will help me get that done. As a single mom, I float on my, yep, I hear it. Hey, I've done the same thing, Tracy, for many years. And for the 4 years that I've been in this, I had a business credit card, and I do use that as kind of like, I almost like would justify it to myself. Like, well, it's, I can write it off. It's against my business. Most businesses, have debt and all this kind of stuff. So I would like do that, and I would pay the, 15% or 17%. I'd be like, it's just against the business. But man, looking back, I'm like, gosh, I've just, overextended myself because of that. I've lost a lot of money because of that. So many reasons why that, needs to get taken care of and treated just like as if it was your own debt, that debt on your business credit card. Cool. Let me check Facebook. What else we got, guys? Any other questions? Target is dangerous, especially for teachers. Yep. Do y'all have a link for that book to purchase? Not sure which book, Jeremy, you're talking about. I will put all of, the books though in this comments. So that way in the show notes, you'll have all of the books that I mentioned, which I've got, Richest Man in Babylon, Simple Path to Wealth, and, the manual, or what I'm drawing a blank. Let me see here. Talking about too many different things. Your Money, The Missing Manual by J.D. Roth is the third one. So those are all the different books that I talked about today. All right, cool. Chris, are there any drawbacks of having a financial advisor? Should I just handle my accounts on my own? Kind of talked about that earlier. Yeah, I do think there's major drawbacks. I know that a lot of people might disagree, especially if you're a financial advisor yourself. But go read Financial Path to Wealth. I'm not the one saying this. Again, I'm a finance major. And after I read that book, I definitely don't see the benefit to having a financial advisor personally. It's not something I'm going to do. You may feel differently. And if that's the case, go read the book. And then if you still feel differently, then go have a financial advisor. But I just think that honestly, like if you put this in a low cost index fund, you don't need somebody to do that for you. You're spending a lot of money, even if it's like 1 or 2% or whatever. It's a lot of money when you compound that over time, what that money is worth, right? Like if you would have earned 1%, or like say 1% of $50,000 that you made that year goes to a financial advisor, that's a lot of money, right? That's like $500. And then what that could have done 30 years from now, that's even more money, right? So you're just like compounding it when really it doesn't need to be done, because he talks about financial advisors and like how many of them, can beat the average turn of the index over 30 or 40 years. And it's like none, like it's very little, right? Like, so yeah. All right, Matt. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Glad you're on here. Let's see, Ross book. Oh, that's the one you were wondering. Okay, cool. So I got that one on there. All right, guys. Well, cool. What other questions we got from anybody? Anyone else before we wrap this thing up? All right. Well, again, I'll just let everybody know that I'm going to put the recording for this on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Kyle Handy. You can go actually access all of my past trainings on there. I think we've got about 30 or 40 now that have been over the last, weeks that we've been doing this. Plus, I also put additional training that are not these Monday Masterminds on that page as well. And so thanks, Jerome. Appreciate you got me there. Yeah, that's the Patreon page there. And then, so the first one you can sign up for is all of the past recordings for the Monday Mastermind. I've got another one, I think it's $4.99 a month, that you can access all of the Tuesday Masterminds, which is all about EXP, agent attraction, mindset, trainings, all that kind of stuff goes into the Tuesday one. And then if you're an EXP agent and you want both of them, you can sign up for both. I think it's like $8.50 or something like that for the month to get all of the trainings. So hope everybody likes that. I hope you guys liked this training. I know it was a little bit different than the real estate training. If you liked this training, put a like, put a comment, because I would love to do more of this stuff. This is stuff that I'm truly passionate about. I've just got like a natural affinity to go towards finances and numbers. And so like, if this is helpful, if you want me to keep bringing, good things, with regards to personal finance, even though it's not necessarily real estate specific related, let me know that. And I'm happy to keep, kind of tying some of these in every now and then. I will be tying this in automatically next week because I didn't finish it up. So next week, if you want to do a little bit more of these, I think I've got 10 principles that you need to hear about too. Like these are principles that should also be thought of, because I think it might even help you to make this plan and actually stick with it when you hear about some of these things and why it's so important that you get this stuff under control. So next week, it'll be those 10 principles. So I look forward to seeing everybody on that one. Think about old single ladies starting from scratch and what we need to do. You got it, Sylvia. You got it.
Did you write down the 6 accounts, Sylvia, and start like chopping up your money? That's the first thing I'm going to do today is like go to my current checking account balance. And I may not have 6 accounts, but I'm just going to start chopping up the money and just see what it looks like right now and start getting used to what it looks like every time the money comes in. I think that's a real practical, simple, quick way to do it.
The cool thing on You Need a Budget, also the other reason why I promote this, why I think it's so cool, because the more research I did about this, I really do feel that they are a great company they're not in it just for the money. $7 a month for their stuff is very inexpensive, and they've kept it that low for a reason. Like they understand people that are trying to get their finances in order don't want to go and spend $39 a month, right? Or $59 a month, right? Which is like what a lot of these platforms cost. Like I use QuickBooks, and God, I'm like, appalled by every month that I got to pay my QuickBooks bill, and it's like $130 a month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to keep my finances in order. And that's literally almost like an account that needs to be on its own is for QuickBooks. And it's like, You Need a Budget, very inexpensive. Plus they do like daily webinars and trainings, like live trainings that you can attend that talk more about this stuff. So I highly recommend it. Go in there. You can actually just go to Learn the Method at the very top, and it tells you like, how this works in a nutshell. And a lot of it is like what we had talked about, right? Giving every dollar a job, step 1. Rule 2 is embrace your true expenses. They talk about like what that means. Rule number 3 is roll with the punches. And this kind of talks about like not being too obsessed with like just sticking to the numbers that you put into those accounts. So if you put, 10% towards your having fun, and then you put, 10 or 55% towards your necessities, and you had a little bit more money in your necessities that month, you can go spend it, right? Like if you had left over, you can kind of move money over to different accounts and not being so rigid with it, and why that's important. Aging your money, they talk about that, and basically just talking about how you need to use last month's pay on this month's expenses. So many of us, we budget in the sense of like, well, we're gonna make this money, so let's put that money like towards the budget, right? Like, no. Like go off the money you literally have in your account right now, right? That's something that we can all do. Like, don't start like pre-planning this kind of stuff out. And they talk about that rule more in detail when you're setting up that budget. And so again, I feel like we all need a system, and this seems like a great system that you can use if you haven't already created a system. So cool. And that was it. So they keep it pretty simple, but love to keep in touch with you guys. If anybody starts to do these systems and use them, feel free, like come on these calls, in the next few weeks or whatever, and share your experience, good or bad, with us. I think that this stuff is so important for all of us, and as real estate agents, we do definitely want to teach you how to make more money, but even more than that, I think it's important to teach how to keep your money, right? And how to make those money have little money babies and start to multiply, because money loves to multiply, but you got to be able to keep that money and put it towards something that's going to make it multiply. And so literally, that's funny. It was something I heard about making little money babies. And now, like, every time I think about in my head about investing, like I picture like my money making little money babies, right? And I just want to like have that happen more and more and more. And it's been a weird thing that in my mind of like now why I want to invest, right? Because it's like, and honestly, like a lot of this happened when I started thinking of like residual income, right? And it's like, yes, you can create a job where you can create residual income, but one of the best ways to create residual income is have your money work for you, right? Like put your money to work for you versus you just always having to like work harder or scale your business. Like that's a great way too, to like scale your business, starting to put leverage into your business, whatever that means, but then have your money start to earn leverage. And that was actually going to get into kind of like those 10 principles, talking about leverage and, like going out, and if you do buy rental real estate or something like that, how you can actually create leverage and doing things like that. So we'll get into that next call, guys. Again, sorry we couldn't get into it all today. It was just, I always got all these like high overachieving goals of what we can accomplish in an hour, but it goes by so quickly. So next week we'll finish this all up. So I appreciate everybody on the call today. So awesome talking to everybody, seeing all you guys on Facebook. I think this was one of the most attended ones that I'd seen on Facebook Live. So that's really cool. But anyways, guys, if you got any questions or anything like that, never hesitate to reach out. Always happy to help. Would love to hear some stories of this going forward. And everybody, I hope you have a great week. We'll see you guys on the call next week, or if you join the Tuesday one, we'll see you tomorrow. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Later.